All right, we're going to use a couple of different tools to just make a heart. And we're going to use mostly the pen tool, and we're going to use some alignment, and we're going to join some vectors and some other things. So I'll show you kind of how this works. So the first thing I'm going to do is get some guides and rulers. So if you look at under view, we have a couple of things in terms of guides. We can lock guides and hide them. We have smart guides, we have a perspective grid, we could actually create a grid. So you can see here, if I click here, it'll actually show a grid. But I just want a couple of things in terms of the grid. So I don't want a full grid, I just want like one or two guides. So I'm going to hide that grid. So let me show you how that works. So Command R will give us a rulers. So you notice that that shows the rulers here. And you have a 0, 0, and you can see it gives us the dimension of 8.5 by 11. And what we can do is create a guide. So we go over to the ruler. If I want a vertical guide, I go over to this side here, and I can click and drag, and I can actually place that on a particular point. So this is 4 inches. This would be 4.5 inches. So if that's 8.5, it would have to be 4.25, which is about right here. And so that creates a guide straight down the middle of the page. And you'll notice under view, when the guides are locked, once I let it go, I can't move it. And that's a really important thing, because if I'm drawing and moving shapes around, I don't want my guide to move with me. So a lot of times I just leave that guides lock on. Now if we want to release it, you can unlock the guides, and now I can select this and move it around. Okay, but typically I leave that locked just for that reason. So you can see that that's locked there. Now Command colon will hide or unhide that. So sometimes if you get a lot of those, it can be a little bit messy, and you can simplify your design just to look at it. So, but I'm going to lock this vertical down. I'm also going to make a horizontal one. So I'm just going to grab one from the top here, and we're just going to make it about, well, let's do it halfway. So that's 11, so half is 5.5 inches. And so now I've kind of divide that into segments. And so that will help me do some guide work. So, all right, so now what I want to do is use this guide to create a heart. And this is going to be the bottom point of the heart. So I'm going to zoom in. So again, that's the space bar and Command, and I'm going to kind of zoom in here. And I'm going to just start by drawing a heart. So I'm going to do my pen tool. And to do this, what I'm going to do is actually just draw 1/2 and cut and paste it, and then kind of stitch it together. So I'm going to start here, and I want this heart to have a sharp point. So I'm just going to click, and at this point I'm going to drag it out here for its side. And when I click here, I'm going to hold it down and drag it. And so this is going to kind of create the side. And I'm going to hold down Shift because I want it to be kind of vertical. And then I'm going to do one more up here. And you can see how this will work. And then click and drag. And I'm just going to hold that vertical as well. You can see it's kind of created this heart shape. Okay. And then I'm just going to hit Escape. Okay. And that will get me out of the tool. You'll notice now, let's put a stroke on this object. So I'm just going to go over to my swatches and put a nice red fill on it, but let's do it with a stroke so we can actually see it. All right, so it's an okay shape. You can see that it might need some help. First of all, I want to adjust this shape. So I'm going to go back to my direct selection tool and modify some of those arms. That looks a little bit better. Whenever I'm drawing shapes, I want to make these as simple as possible. And so to do that, you want to use the least amount of points. And this will take practice to learn, but if you can make the object, the lines, in the most simple way, I would do that with the least amount of points. It will just make the object a lot easier to edit. So in this case, I'm just using 3 main points to make that half. Okay. Now, if I zoom in, you can see that I did an okay job of trying to get this exactly on that middle point, but I'm actually going to select that end. And this is a great thing to use the direct selection tool as well, because I only want to move this anchor point. I don't want to move any of these other ones. I just want to move that main anchor point at the bottom right in the center. So if I click that, and you can see that it's going to snap there. So that's directly right on that center point. And that's what's great about these guides. It'll snap to those guides. So I can do the same thing here in terms of dragging that point to that guide. So now that's completely vertical, and that will work. So what I want to do now is cut and paste this and reflect it so it makes the mirror image, and we'll connect those two. So I'm just going to select this with my direct selection tool. Now I could copy and paste if I wanted to. That works. I could also just select this and then hold my Command and Option key. As I move it, you can see that it will copy it, and then if I hold Shift down, it will keep it aligned vertically and horizontally, which is great. I use that probably the most often. Another way that I really like about this, though, is I'm just going to select this and Command C, so it's going to be a copy, and then I'm going to paste it in front, Command F. And so what that does, and if we open up our artboard or our layers here, you can see I've got guides. This is another thing we can turn on and off. They show up in the layers. But you can see I've got that path, and it's copied. And then if I hit Command F, notice it created another path right on top of it. So that's that paste in place, or paste in front, excuse me. And that's important because what I want to do is leave it exactly on that, but I just want to mirror it. So mirror or reflect. So I'm going to go to my reflect tool, or O, and then when I click and drag and hold Shift down, you can see that it is now mirrored directly. Okay, and now I can just drag this over. You can see how that's going to be created. So in some ways we can use our arrow keys, and that will nudge objects if you want. But in this case, I want to move in close, again using my selection tool, and I want to move that over to where it will be directly aligned with the guides that we did. Okay, so we'll kind of see how that works. Now I may not have drawn this perfect. You can see that it may be off slightly, so I may want to adjust that slightly, but this is a great way of kind of moving that. All right, and now what we want to do is join these objects. Okay, so this is how you join different paths. So I'm going to select my direct selection tool right up here, and I'm just going to click and drag over those 2 points. And then if we go to object and path, we get a couple of options here in terms of joining and average. So Command J is the join, and you'll notice what happened right there is it joined those 2 points together. Okay, and you'll notice right here that we have a couple of paths going on, and if I hit Command J, it joins those together. Okay, so those are joined at that point. Now these aren't joined up here, so I may want to connect that as well, and Command J, and in some cases those can't be joined because they're not on the, or they're already closed. Okay, but now that works when you'll notice that now I have a heart shape and they're connected. So that can be a great way of, let's say again, pen tool, let's say I've got that as a line, and I've got this other line, and I want to join this to that. I can move those together or close together, and again you got to use the direct selection tool. So I'm just selecting, kind of click and drag those 2 points, Command J, or it's under Object, Path, Join. And you can see that it's joined those 2 paths. So in this case, this might be a good example of like deleting one of those. So the minus point, so under the path or pen tool, delete an anchor point, I can delete one of those. So that kind of straightened that out. Again, that shows how simplification can work. But that's how you would join your objects. So that just kind of creates a path. But it's a great way of using this to create a heart. And then, I can adjust that if it's like, oh, I want it to be a little bit longer. You can kind of adjust it as you see fit. These might be a little bit steep. So I could also adjust this too if I click on those points, click and drag just on those two. You can see that it moves those up. So you can alter the shape as you kind of need it. Okay. But sometimes it's just refining that 1/2 to see how that works. But that's a great way of making objects. And you can see how I've been using a lot of those tools together to make those.